Hey, hi there. My name is Neil Christiansen, and welcome back to another episode of the Mile High Market Talk podcast, where we bring local professionals to the stage so that they can share their expertise and to educate clients who are interested in building their overall net worth. In today's episode, we're going to share some smart, actionable strategies that buyers can use to stand out in today's market. To make competitive and fair offers and ultimately to win the deal, but not to bust their budget either. So whether you're a first-time home buyer or someone who's looking to move up and get into that next new place, I think this episode is going to be great for you. I'd like to introduce the local guest, Julia Mohseni. She's with Homestead Real Estate LLC, and she has helped countless buyers get through this process, especially in this unique market that we're experiencing right now. She's very involved with her local community. So again, this is a great episode to pay attention to because I think you're going to come away with some great tips, some great strategies on how you can get into that next house. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Julia. Hey, Julia, how you doing today?
I'm well, thanks. How are you today, Neil?
I'm doing great, doing great. Thanks so much for joining us. And I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. I really think, the questions that we came up with really sit well with where the market is right now. We're going to talk inventory. We're going to talk some strategies and so forth, as well as what I was really interested in was when one is making an offer, there's 5 main points that you like to pay attention to when making that offer and frankly, having it stand out with others if there's other offers to help your buyer win the deal. So I'm really looking forward to that. That being said, let's go ahead and just start talking about the first question here. So we know that inventory levels have definitely increased here in the Denver metro, but you're in the Boulder market and its surrounding communities. Talk to me a little bit about that inventory and how does that look?
Yeah, absolutely. So, right now, we are seeing the highest point of new listings in the area since 2009. So, we're over 16 years of seeing this kind of inventory. In the month of May alone, we had 1,542 new homes come onto the market. And in May, only 484 of those went under contract out of all the inventory that was active. When we break it down further, we have the attached product, which is your condo or your townhome. There were 524 of those on the market. And the detached product, which is your standalone single family home, we had 1,018 of those in here or on the market here in Boulder County. And it's really a type of inventory where we're seeing a big shift because months ago there was this concept and this mindset of inventory is scarce. It's low inventory. There isn't a lot of product out there. And now the pendulum has swung far the other way and we have an abundance of inventory and we don't have as much buyer demand to keep up with it.
So your stat though, let's see, you said about 400 sold, about 1,100 were on the market. So we're under 40% of homes selling. Is that accurate?
It is, yeah. So we had about 1,500 on the market.
Okay,
And so, yep, we
1,500.
had
So even less than.
484. So, right now we are seeing that homes are going under contract, but just the demand, it can't keep up with it. We're seeing buyers really, they're interested, they would like to purchase, but they're sitting on the sidelines. They're looking for homes that are turnkey, they're move-in ready.
Mhm.
Sellers have done everything they need to button up their home and get it ready to stand out in front of the competition.
So have you seen with homes, a lot of homes coming on the market, have you, when you're shopping with your buyers, how many of these homes are kind of turnkey? Is that kind of what's holding buyers back a little bit? Or what's your opinion on that?
No, that's one thing right now in this market where buyers have a bit more wiggle room than they've had in years past.
Hmm.
It's not just the fact that they're strictly waiting for a turnkey home. When I go and tour, whether it's going by myself to preview homes for clients or I'm
Hmm.
taking clients out on tours, it is still a mix. We are going in and seeing homes that need new paint, that need new carpet, that aren't clean or really ready for market, but the seller was in whatever circumstance they were in that they needed to get it on at that point in time. But you don't get a second chance at a first impression. And that first impression, those first 30 minutes of someone coming into your home, that sets the tone of if they're thinking about it and if it's going to stick with them.
Yeah. And considering it's not cheap to buy a house, these days with rates being relatively high and home prices still staying pretty high. I can imagine that that buyer really just wants to kind of find that house and move in and not have to worry about any of the paints and the carpets and that kind of stuff, when they're out there looking for homes.
Absolutely. Right now, buyers with seeing more inventory on the market and feeling like, okay, not only do I have the gift of time, but I have options that I may not have had when I was looking a few months back.
Hmm.
They want to make sure that these bigger items are taken care of. So, besides seeing things like painting and carpet, we are having buyers getting really smart and specific, wondering about these bigger systems, your furnace, your hot water heater, wondering about the age of your roof. Not only is the age of your roof going to protect your most valuable asset, your home, but it
Hmm.
also then impacts your insurance and how much your policy is going to cost you. And buyers are really smart to that, and now they have a higher chance of being able to negotiate these items than previously.
Nice. Yeah. So, I mean, we know that there was going to be a shift at some point from a seller market to a buyer's market. Now, I think by definition, a buyer's market is 6+ months of inventory. I don't think we're there yet. So, what's holding back that buyer? Is it just really what we've been talking about? Just, hey, I want a turnkey home. I want to make sure that when I walk in, I'm not going to have to do anything. What's your opinion on that?
So, from what I'm seeing with my buyers, I have a handful of active buyers where they're getting their listings. We're going out, we're touring, we're talking about them. I'm making the calls to the agents. But then when it comes time to take the next step, it's, well, rates are really high right now. And gosh, this house is still, I wish I could get a better deal on it. Or, since more things are coming onto the market, maybe something better will come along. And
Yep.
it's this idea of there's uncertainty in what the current market is doing. And with with real estate being so localized, our local market here in Boulder County is offering more inventory, more options that buyers aren't in a rush as they were before.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the Boulder market, right? I mean, that's or Boulder County. A lot of people want to get there for various reasons and so forth, but it's interesting just to hear what you say. It sounds like rates, it sounds like home prices, it sounds like homeowners insurance. I mean, obviously that's the affordability piece, but then they also want something that's ready to go. And if it's not ready to go, you know what? There's a lot more properties that keep hitting the property or the market. So I'm going to continue to just hold off, and I'm seeing the same thing on my side too. So it's just interesting how inventory, whether it's going up or going down, can affect the psychology of how either the seller or buyer will proceed. So that's interesting.
Absolutely. And like you had just brought up with the fact of what's a buyer's market and a seller's market, right? So we know if you have over 6 months supply of inventory, it's a buyer's market. 4 to 6 months, it's a normalized market. And under 4 months of inventory, we're in a seller's market. Right now in Boulder County, as the whole, as the county, it's a 4.4 month supply of inventory. That right there is a 25% increase from what we saw last year. And now, like I said previously, real estate's so hyper local. So we can look at Boulder County, but then if you look at the subsets and the offshoot markets of the smaller towns within Boulder County, there's a difference. Longmont is at 3.2 months supply of inventory. Lyons is at 6% inventory. The market right now cannot absorb the product that's there. We don't have the demand. And so it's really interesting. And buyers are seeing that where you don't have that rush like a few years ago where buyers really needed to just jump at the first thing that came along. And
Hmm.
it's a different mindset now that everyone needs to settle into. And of course, once you settle into this new mindset, then the market will shift and change. So we can't control that, but it's a matter of adjusting how you approach things.
Yeah. Do you have, and just off the top of your head, do you know what that increase from May of 2025 to May of 2024, what that increase in inventory was from a percentage standpoint? I'm just curious.
I don't have the number with me or off the top of my head for the percentage of inventory.
Okay. But we know that it's more than what it
Right.
was. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because I think a stat that I pay attention to is current inventory, May 2025 to pre-pandemic. So we'll call that, January, February of 2019. And I
Right.
believe the Denver area, Denver, Aurora, Lakewood market is almost 65% up in inventory than it was back in the pre-pandemic, which, you got to be a little cautious to use that as your baseline because we still didn't probably have enough homes to support demand or at least the population at that point. But I mean, even to look at almost 65 to 70% more homes, no wonder the buyers are kind of digging in their heels and saying, I got plenty to look at. I don't need to make a decision like I did 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Right. And right now, too, you know, then if you switch a bit and look at what rates were,
Yeah.
pandemic rates.
Yep.
So then we go into that mindset. And it's this idea for buyers of, oh my gosh, this is too good to be true. I have to get this rate. If I could lock something in, we'd be set. We can make the house work. And that old saying of, marry the house and you date the rate.
Yeah.
Well, people were really excited to go and date the rate during those pandemic times. And right now, the rates are not attractive. And so, this concept of I'm okay with where I'm at, I don't need to jump unless something else changes, that nudge for buyers, unless there really is that sense of urgency, because whether they have family things coming up, there's a job, a relocation, all the different factors that motivate someone to move and buy and sell. If it's not really there, if it's just kind of like, well, we can make do with what we have right here, we're fine. It's not a necessary item to move.
Hmm. Hmm.
If they don't
Right.
have that rush, why would they jump?
Right. Right. And I mean, maybe you can just touch on this real quick, but with your listings and your sellers, they may say, hey, I've got a great rate. I've got plenty of equity. I would love to get into that next bigger house because our family has grown and so forth. But you know what? If I don't get the price that I want, there's really no urgency for me to move. Is that kind of a common thread that you guys are hearing out there with sellers?
Oh, yeah. So, with sellers too, you're going to have two key points of what's going to motivate a seller. And sometimes they're together, sometimes it's not in isolation. But one is going to be your bottom line as your price dollar. I need X amount to net from this sale to take the next step.
Hmm.
The next one is your timeline. I need to get out of this house and to this next place by this date. I have to sell this house and keep moving forward. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's a combination of the both.
Uh-huh.
I've had plenty of sellers that go, you know what? We would love to take the next step. We have this goal, we have this dream, we have this plan, but we're not in a rush. We don't have this urgency within our timeline, and we do want this number to get out of here. So we'll just sit and wait. And that's fine with us. And someone will come along. And without that sense of urgency, the conversation you have with the sellers is going to be different, right? The idea of, okay, well, we need to really get it sharp, buttoned up, get ready to go. You still want to have that with your sellers, but some sellers are just kind of like, this is as much work as we can do. It's going to go to market now. This is our date. And now we'll just kick up our legs and see what happens. The biggest thing that does help with that is when we as agents connect with each other and provide that feedback after showings. Getting that live feedback from the market speaks, and you just
Yep.
have to be ready to listen to it. So
Yeah.
when you have other buyers and other agents touring a property and they're saying, great house, but it lacks curb appeal, bedrooms are too small, there are going to be things that you can and can't change. I cannot change the size of the bedrooms and where the structural walls are, but I
Right.
can change the curb appeal, and you work with it. You have to be willing to adjust. Otherwise, you're going to sit.
Yep. Yep. You're sitting and then ultimately maybe pulling it off the market for those that are not necessarily have that urgency. But on the flip side, like you said, if that person needs to sell, then they're going to do whatever they can to make sure that that product is ready to go, and also probably be a little bit flexible with financing terms and so forth to perhaps help the buyer moving forward.
Right, right. And also with that, with the sellers, it's really a matter too of if listing agents are preparing their sellers for that,
Yeah.
letting them know, hey, here's our average day on market. Boulder County, we're at 58 days on market. When I'm going to a listing appointment, you have to say these things. You have to give that honest information because it's going to help your client and that seller make their most informed decision. The more information they have, the more confident and comfortable they're going to feel within the transaction and knowing what they need to do. Otherwise, you're going to get someone after that first weekend that's like, hey, where's my offer? How come we didn't have 30 people at the open house?
Right.
And you need to be able to have hard conversations and set realistic expectations.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not back in COVID times where you can get what you want. You kind of have to listen to the market and adjust accordingly. So that's inventory. I think we can conclude that a lot more homes on the market. buyers are definitely kind of, allowing themselves to digest it more than they have ever had to in the last couple of years. You mentioned something to me when we were having this conversation offline. You said that there's something called the gift of time for the buyer. Talk a little bit more about that. What does that mean? I know we've kind of talked a little bit about, the buyers and so forth, but expand on that for me.
Yeah, of course. I'd love to. The gift of time is a mindset too that I used from my days before real estate when I was in teaching and administration for schools. The gift of time is being able to take time, right? You don't have to rush into a decision. And it beautifully translates over into the world of real estate. Right now, we are seeing that buyers have the gift of time more than they've had in years prior. We have homes that are sitting on the markets for, as I said just now, in Boulder County, an average of 58 days. If you aren't stressed about getting an offer in that first weekend, I can take my clients now to a showing. We can go on a Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then she calls and she says, I really like it. Can we go back on Monday? Okay, well, prior to that, you couldn't take all those days in between. You couldn't wait a weekend out. You couldn't
Right.
just say, sure, go camping and then we'll get back to it.
Yeah.
Now we can. People can go and enjoy their life and really process and digest that information of what they saw in the home to make a smart decision.
Hmm.
We can go back for a second showing. And when we go back for a second showing, I really ask my clients to look for a different time of day because we're going to see different traffic patterns. We're seeing, we have here in Longmont where I live, we have a local airport. We're able to see different flight patterns and hear the different road noise or the airplane noise. Or if you're close to a school, you can kind of see what traffic's looking like close to farms, what are CSA days. You get to just see what the environment and the neighborhood's like.
Hmm.
On
Hmm.
weekends, you could see if you're close to a park and playground, how lively is it? How sensitive are you to these external factors? So, setting up times and showings at a different day and a different time gives your buyer more information and more feedback about the world around the house they're buying.
Yeah.
Because you're buying this property and home, but it's impacted by all the neighbors and surrounding streets. So they have that gift of time to literally look at a different time of day. In addition to that, with extra showings and different visits at daytime, nighttime, midday, buyers right now can ask for more information. We can do more due diligence work up front. We
Hmm.
can ask the listing agent for any documents and disclosures that they have. Can we get the seller's property disclosure before we write an offer? We want to look at it. We want to be able to review what work has been done. I can advise my clients to go to the local county website and pull permits and records to see what work has been done. Has it been permitted? If it has a well or a septic on it, my buyers, if they're really interested on it, they can start to look to see if the Septic Smart certification has already been started or done, or when work was last done to it. They
Hmm.
can make calls to find out about the well. They can do all this work without that time crunch that happens within the contract. Once we get under contract, it's a kind of boom, boom, boom. You got to be moving quickly and making phone calls with sometimes you're making a lot of very quick decisions.
Hmm.
There's one study that showed that in a residential real estate transaction, around 80 decisions are made.
Yeah.
And so if you can get more information up front before you go under contract, you're going to feel more confident with your
Hmm.
decision making. You won't
Hmm.
second guess yourself. And then we don't have as much buyer's remorse that we've seen in the past where people go, okay, we just made it through the first 2 weeks of the contract. I just hit a brick wall. I just did so much. And also, whoa, wait, what did I just do?
Hmm.
I'm just about to spend half a million, over $1 million for this property, and I haven't taken a breath yet.
Yeah.
So giving buyers the gift of time to breathe as they walk through the home, to get more than 30 minutes in a home, to visit it multiple times and to do their due diligence up front to learn more about the property and its history. It just empowers a buyer to make a really smart financial decision.
Yeah, it's funny because we should all be able to take a lot of time. I mean, sometimes I do research on a product on Amazon that is going to cost me $50, and I do a research project for like 5 or 6 hours. It's like that's crazy, right? Like, yet, yeah, back in COVID times, we literally were making decisions to buy probably your biggest debt asset in a matter of a couple hours.
Right.
So I wish this. You mentioned about Longmont. I'm actually a private pilot, and there's communities that we belong to kind of understand how people are feeling about the planes and the patterns and so forth. And they can be extremely frustrated by the plane noise. There's a lot of people that live in the Superior area. Those are wonderful homes. They're great communities and so forth, but they're fed up. And sometimes if you, like you say, you go out there on a Wednesday, everything sounds pretty calm. You go out there on a Saturday and it sounds like DIAs just right over your roof.
Yeah.
It allows people to make, like you say, better, more sound decisions. And ultimately, I think that reflects on you as the agent. If you give them that time, and again, I know that the market sometimes dictates how fast somebody has to move, but they probably see you as a true professional and that you're doing this so that they're making the right decision. They're getting into the right house. It's not so much about you and your commission and, lifestyle and so forth. So I think it's just a great way to approach. And I'm assuming your buyers love that because they can feel like, Julia's not going to necessarily pressure me. She's going to allow us to give us some time. Yes, eventually we need to make a decision, but I'm very comfortable kind of just allowing myself to, see what else is out there perhaps.
Absolutely. And I don't like to feel rushed or pushed into a
Yeah.
decision. And so that's not how I work with people. And I want them to feel comfortable because it's not just a one transaction thing. I'm big into this and building the relationship and the connection that lasts well after the transaction. I just got letters today from a few different clients in the mail of just keeping that connection alive in a relationship. And so if you're going to just be pushing and focusing on getting this one moment in time complete, sure, you could do that, but your client's not going to feel good about that. That's not a great win. Also, you just talked about back in the COVID times when we were really making those snap decisions. Another aspect of gift of time is that buyers now have more time to really sit and connect with their lender, really look at how they should write an offer. What is the smartest move? Some people that are still doing 3-2-1 rate buy downs or 2-1 rate buy downs. Or do we permanently buy the rate down? Do we bring in more money for a down payment? What are different options that we can work with that help us save money over the life of the loan?
Hmm.
And having more time to not only shop for the house, look at due diligence documents, but sit and connect with their lender, it's going to make them feel so much more confident because they have more education in that
Hmm.
gift of time. I mean, how many times do you work with someone and you talk with them about the lending process, you talk with them about these steps, and they're like, okay, okay, okay. And then they call back a little later and they're like, wait, I'm sorry, I was overwhelmed. This is not my language I usually speak. It's our job to educate and give them as much information as possible. And if they have the time to sit with a lender and really review what's available for them and then make a decision that feels good for them, they're going to be so happy.
Yeah. Yeah. The phrase that I don't want to hear from a potential prospect is got it. Right. Because
Yeah.
we talk so much about, you're talking real estate and this, that, the other and disclosures. I'm talking numbers. I'm presenting as, transparent and efficiently as I can to show what it's going to cost them, down payment rates, et cetera. And sometimes these conversations can be, several minutes long. And then all of a sudden you hear the borrower say, okay, got it. And then they're ready to go. It's like,
They've shut down.
I don't know if we got it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. The wall's up. They've got it. They've got too much information. Like their
Right.
cup is full. There's no amount left to go in. So
Right.
yeah.
So it's always I mean, so I again, this is so good because buyers they still might feel like they don't necessarily have the upper hand, and I don't want to say that they do, but it's definitely becoming more of a buyer's market. I think we're all kind of aware of that, but the gift of time, I think, just gives people, like you say, that opportunity to just kind of slow down. Let me go and shop my homeowners insurance rates, see what that looks like, shopping rates with lenders. How are they going to structure it? Who do I really want to connect with for the long term? Since this is going to be my hopefully biggest asset that I purchase. So I really think that time element can separate you as a professional versus those that tend to be, hey, I got to get a paycheck. I think that's great.
Right. Yeah. And just, it's a nice reminder too, just like in life, like we could take a breath with this. We could just breathe into it and sit with it. And we have the time to know, okay, we can make this decision in an hour or in a day, in 10 days. We'll stay in touch and we'll stay on top of it. Now, granted, wait 10 days You want to make sure you have an agent that's staying in touch with the listing agent and in communication and keeping you informed of what's happening in any movement. But right now we can do that.
Yeah, we can get away with that. All right, so we've got the inventory. We know that the buyers are very comfortable with allowing them to kind of just take your time. But when they get ready and they say, "Okay, Julia, I'm ready to make an offer. I love that house." What are the ways that when you're writing up that contract, are there areas that you like to focus on so that when that listing agent gets it and presents it to their seller, they're like, "Hey, this is a solid offer. I really think it's something that we should consider."
Absolutely. So when we think about writing an offer, everyone jumps to price, right? Like that's your first thing. Okay, what are we going to offer? And it's when someone says that, they're asking about price. But there are really five main components to an offer that are big negotiating points. So when I have a buyer that likes a house, they're ready to move forward, and we review our offer, I want to talk about these five key features because there's more to it than just price. You can actually come in under asking and still present a very strong offer. And I hear that across the board when I do this with listing agents of, you know what? I know this offer is under asking, but this is a solid, clean offer, and I presented it to my sellers in that way.
Hmm.
And we get under contract.
Hmm.
So when we're looking at our contract to buy and sell, number one, it is price. We are looking at what our price is. Now, right now, with more options, more inventory, we're getting a little bit more bold, feeling like we don't have to just jump at list price. We can search the comps, breathe it out, see how it's going, and offer maybe under asking, figuring out a really good offer. Obviously, we don't want to just lowball and offend someone. We want, if this is the house you want, we do want to put in a good offer. So we're going to go with that. The next one are your terms. Terms talks about whether you can be a cash offer, whether you are getting a loan, what kind of loan you're getting, and how much earnest money you're putting down. Earnest money set in the listing, it's going to say this house is for sale. Earnest money is at $10,000. Maybe you want to show that you're a bit more serious and you want to put down 15 or 20,000.
Hmm.
Maybe you want to make your earnest money hard. There are different things that you can work with and play with in those terms to stand out. The next one after that are going to be your dates and your deadlines. And those are our big things here. A traditional real estate contract, we're looking at a 28-day from getting under contract to closing. We have more breathability. We have more gift of time. Maybe you're not in a rush and you still need to extend your lease. Maybe you're looking for a 45-day closing.
Hmm.
We want to connect with the sellers and make sure that works, but we can find a nice middle ground to work with in that because if the sellers have been sitting on the market for a while, buyers are saying, hey, we could take up to 60 days also with our loan, and our lender said that's okay. This is what we want to do. We can play with it. So it doesn't have to be just like buy the house in under a month,
Hmm.
get in there,
Hmm.
unless that's what they want. Sometimes we're writing offers where we're coming in under asking, but hey, we can still close in 3 weeks. We can be really quick on our dates and deadlines and come in under asking, and that's nice and strong.
Yep.
Also, with your dates and deadlines, we're looking at are we going to get all of our due diligence items done up front? So, are we going to get our inspection done within like the first 10 days? Are we going to have our property insurance termination on the earlier side of it? Right now, here in the state of Colorado, we are seeing property insurance issues that is coming up,
Hmm.
especially in both markets. Within the attached market, we're seeing that as a problem that has gotten in the way with some deals. And then as you get further up within those mountain properties, insurance can be tricky. Even here in the Front Range, after the Marshall fires, it
Hmm.
changed the game of what insurance looks like for homeowners insurance.
Yep. Yep.
So your dates and deadlines, are you getting things done up front? And how much time is in between from when you can object on something to when you resolve it?
Hmm.
The next one that we're looking at are your inclusions and your exclusions. Traditionally and typically, your sellers are going to put that right in the listing, what's included and what's excluded. But maybe there's some fabulous grill or something, or maybe, you know what, really don't like the chandelier and I'd rather get my own. I want that excluded. We have a bit more wiggle room. Also, sometimes people just go with their inclusions and exclusions based on what a listing agent says. They're going to say It's really just your appliances and your washer dryer. So everything else can be excluded. And then someone looks around and they're like, wow, those are custom made curtain rods and those are stunning. And I bet those are really sentimental to the seller. Let me put that in exclusions because it's not really my taste and style. And that's actually, it's so oddly specific, that comment, but that's something I just worked through in a recent deal. And it made a world of difference to the seller of like, oh my gosh, thank you for that. We were going to leave those, but it was a nice touch. And it just brings a bit of humanity back into the contract.
Hmm.
So inclusions and exclusions are negotiating points. And then our last one is going to be contingencies. When it comes to contingencies, we jump and think, okay, are you selling a home to buy this home? That's usually your first thought when it comes to contingencies. Contingencies also includes, are you going to have appraisal gap coverage when we were in that market?
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you going to be negotiating on inspection items? So maybe you want your offer to stand out. Maybe they already had a pre inspection done and your buyer feels really confident with that. I always like my buyers to still get their own inspection, but maybe they're saying, let's write an offer that's under asking. It meets our dates and deadlines. But because I feel good with seeing this inspection that just took place, I won't object to it. And that
Mm.
gives the seller a little bit of comfort and peace of mind in that sense. So
Yeah.
contingencies means of what you're going to object to, in addition to if you need to sell another property.
Well, and that inspection too is interesting because if they're okay with it, then you might be able to be a little bit more aggressive with asking for concessions or credits to help buy down rates and so forth. Because I know sometimes you guys, when I say, okay, the dollar amount for a buy down is going to be this, you're already asking for a lower price. And then you know that the inspection could come back with maybe a couple thousand, $3,000 of work. So now, the seller is feeling like, geez, I'm giving up this much in credit, this much in inspection, and I'm dropping my price. Now, 5 years ago, it was just flipped. It was kind of like, you need to buy this house, frankly, $10,000 more, and we're waiving everything, and hopefully everything works out. So I get both sides, but again, a good offer with all these tips within the contract really probably then can help give that buyer like the best deal of all deals.
Right, right. I had someone not too long ago where they found a house they loved. They had been shopping for a bit. They found a house they loved. They wanted to come in under list price. They wanted a 40-day closing. And the washer and dryer was one that the sellers really wanted to include. And my buyers were like, we just bought new washers and dryer and we want to bring that our washer and dryer with us, and so we're going to exclude it. And it was this funny little moment of this dance with that, but the dates and deadlines, the terms, even though it was a 40-day closing, we were getting everything done up front. We were really clean, we were really tight. After the first 2 weeks, we kind of just sit back and wait for the rest of it to be done. And when I broke it down with the listing agent of, look, here is a strong offer. It may not be the ideal dream offer for your sellers, but with these buyers under this contract, we're going to get this deal done. We're going to get to the closing table. And the fact that they don't want the washer and dryer, I'm sure the sellers could sell it on Facebook Marketplace or something of that nature.
Mhm. Mhm.
They can figure out a game plan for it. And we're able to work together to figure out these details. And it was a really smooth, easy transaction. And it just gave my buyers a bit more confidence of feeling like they had gone from a market prior where they were getting beat out. And now they were like, wow, we're coming in and we're able to get what we want. And also, you have to do the dance. You have to give and take within a real
Sure.
estate transaction. But
Sure.
it was a nice flip for them.
Yeah. I mean, and then talking about just contingencies and so forth, it's funny because we always hear that, well, what does a real estate agent really do? They make money and they don't do much. But to be valuable, the items that we've discussed today, Julia, I mean, you're bringing so much value to the table that I really do think that there's always a need for a professional. And whether it's the buy side or the sell side, I really think somebody should be helping with that transaction, because if the buyer doesn't hire a real estate agent and doesn't understand just these 5 techniques or strategies, or frankly, maybe they know to come in with an aggressive price drop. But like you said, all the other things do matter on when that seller decides to pick the deal. Now, if there's only one offer, I mean, it is what it is. But still, I just think, for people to say that agents don't really do a lot, I think we've just talked about three, items here that three questions that you guys just are always bringing so much value to be valuable to your clients. And I just greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. I am a firm believer that a big part of my job is to bring value and information and make people feel comfortable and confident. My goal is not to just close a deal with you, it's to make sure that you're happy, you're supported, and that you feel good about what you're doing and you're being guided throughout the process. I get to work alongside you with it. I'm not going to be behind you just pushing every step of the way. That's not my style.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I think at the end of the day, we're all always looking for that relationship and referrals and so forth. And I think if you're always providing true value, then that should come along with it at some point.
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, Julia, this has been just a awesome conversation. I've enjoyed just learning more about from these questions and so forth. The gift of life, I think, is just, or the gift of time is really just more something that everybody should take advantage of, not just in real estate, just
Yeah,
in general, right? Like to just give
yeah.
yourself a little bit more time to make decisions, or if you're having a bad day, time always kind of mends things and so forth. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Where can people get a hold of you? Is there a website, email? What would you like to give out?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking that. My name's Julia Mohseni. I work with Homestead Real Estate and my website is realtorjules.com. My number's 732-597064. I'm always available to pick up the call and talk. I'm also a big believer of just meeting with people in person. Go out for coffee and learn about what your local market is like because it'll help you figure out if this is the right time for you to get in the game and take the step of where you want to be and on the path you want to be on.
Yeah, and now that zip code is, or the area code is not local. So, I mean, are they going to be able to actually see you here in Colorado, or you just fly in and fly out?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Wouldn't that be a luxury right there, right? Yeah, no problem. No, that's the Jersey girl in me. You
The
could take the girl
Jersey.
out of Jersey, but you can't take the Jersey out of the girl.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, the 732 number is New Jersey, but I've been in Colorado since 2009, been in Longmont since 2016. I've lived throughout the Colorado Front Range, and it's something that really helps me connect with my buyers and my sellers. I'm able to directly speak about mountain properties and what it's like when your water doesn't work. I've lived in those issues, about septic issues, about wind issues, and what winters are like in the mountains. I've lived in various towns throughout the Front Range here in Boulder County, and I'm able to connect with people on the local school systems, on parks, developments, playgrounds, and different municipalities. So I am here in Colorado, and you'll be able to see me face to face at the coffee shop of your choice.
Good, good, good. So you're
Yeah.
no private jets yet.
Not yet, but there we go. I like the yet. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again for joining us. And until next time, we will hopefully have some great new guests coming up here. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. All right. Take care. See you.
Thanks. See ya.